The radio crackled to life at exactly 2:17 a.m. Unit 7. Respond. Disturbances reported. Downtown sector. Officer Daniel Hayes gripped the steering wheel, a strange feeling of unease settling over him. He drove through the empty streets. The city wrapped in an unnatural silence, the kind that feels like the deep breath before a plunge. Streetlights flickered ominously, and the air felt heavy, charged with unspoken tension. What kind of disturbance? Daniel radioed in. The only reply was a burst of static. His partner, Officer Maria Cole, scanned the dark storefronts. Probably just some panicked calls. Nothing new, she said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. The city felt different tonight. Something was off. They turned onto Grant Street and came to a sudden stop. A police cruiser sat abandoned in the middle of the road, its engine still humming, red and blue lights flashing silently against the empty buildings. "Where's the officer?" Maria whispered, her hand instinctively going to her sidearm. Daniel stepped out of their car, the cool night air raising goosebumps on his arms. "Police." "Anyone here?" It cut out, his voice echoing in the stillness. There was no answer. Then, from the deep shadows between two buildings, a figure emerged, rushing toward them. The man's clothes were torn, and his movements were jerky, stiff, and horrifyingly unnatural. His eyes were vacant, yet they were fixed on them with a chilling intensity. "Stop!" "Police!" Maria yelled, firing a warning shot into the air. The man didn't even flinch. He just kept coming. Daniel raised his weapon and fired. The man dropped to the pavement, silent and unmoving. Maria let out a shaky breath. That wasn't normal," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Before Daniel could respond, their radio exploded with a cacophony of panicked voices from other officers across the city. "Units down. We're under attack. People are attacking. They don't respond to pain." They scrambled back into the car and sped away, the tires squealing on the asphalt. As they drove, they saw more of them. Figures wandering aimlessly through the streets. Some ran with a terrifying, unnatural speed, while others shuffled along slowly, all of them moving with a complete lack of fear or self. One woman, her face a blank mask, slammed her hands against their car window, staring blankly at them before collapsing to the ground. Maria shook her head, her face pale. Something is very, very wrong. They finally reached the Central Police Precinct just as the heavy iron gate slammed shut behind them, sealing them inside. The interior was chaos, but it was a controlled chaos. Injured officers sat, slumped against walls, their faces grim. Others, their hands shaking, were methodically reloading their weapons. Captain Kane, a man whose calm demeanor had steadied them through countless crises, addressed the room. His voice was firm, cutting through the fear. "Listen up. Anyone bitten or badly hurt must be isolated and watched closely. We don't know what this is, but we know it spreads fast." As if on cue, a wounded officer who had been sitting quietly in a corner suddenly collapsed. He convulsed on the floor for a few moments, and then he stood up. His eyes were wild, confused, and then filled with a mindless aggression. That was the moment they all truly understood. The horrifying realization settled over them like a shroud. Headshots. That was the only thing that stopped them. They began to barricade the doors and windows, piling up desks and filing cabinets. Outside, the figures gathered. They weren't attacking the precinct. Not yet. They just stood there, a silent, waiting horde. And then the power went out. The building was plunged into darkness, followed a second later by the eerie, flickering glow of the emergency lights. From the darkened hallways, hard Italiano footsteps. Echoing, shuffling footsteps. They were inside. Daniel and Maria ran, their hearts pounding in their chests. They navigated the dark corridors, the sounds of chaos echoing all around them. They had several close encounters, barely escaping the grasp of their former colleagues. They finally found refuge in the evidence room, barricading the heavy steel door and collapsing to the floor, catching their breath in the pitch-black silence. Or spasset. It felt like an eternity. Suddenly, the radio on Daniel's belt crackled. "Daniel, help." It was Captain Kane's voice, weak and strained. They found him in his office, leaning against his desk, badly injured. A deep bite mark was visible on his arm. He looked up at Daniel, his eyes clear for now, but filled with a terrible certainty. "End it," he said softly. "Don't let me become one of them." With a heavy heart and trembling hands, Daniel did what had to be done. They made their way back through the now quieter halls. As they reached the main lobby, Maria stumbled and fell to her knees. Daniel rushed to her side, and his blood ran cold. He saw it on her arm, a bite. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as she looked up at him, her own eyes filled with terror. "I'm scared," she whispered. A moment later, she stopped moving. When her body stirred again, her eyes no longer her own, Daniel made the hardest choice of his life. At dawn, he stood alone on the rooftop of the precinct, looking out over the city. Plumes of smoke rose from dozens of locations, painting the morning sky gray. The city was silent again, but this was the silence of the grave. His radio crackled one last time, a faint, clear voice cutting through the static. "This is Sergeant Miller of the National Guard. Is anyone receiving this? Any survivors? Please respond." He raised the radio to his lips, his voice hoarse. "This is Officer Daniel Hayes," he said. "I'm a survivor. I think I might be the last one." A calm, reassuring voice replied instantly. "Hold on, Officer Hayes. We see your position. We're coming for you."